So, in this session we are going to continue talking about some more tools available for the authentication based attacks. So, we have already seen a few tools before in the past session. So, we will be continuing to talk about a few more tools which could be used by the penetration tester for doing an authentication based attack. So, we talked about how something like cookie could be potentially used by the penetration tester for getting some very critical information. So, with the kind of authentication cookie that the system could have actually made use of for implementing the authentication mechanism, the penetration tester could actually get details on authentication that could be used by him to penetrate the system successfully. How could he actually try to go about doing that is basically have a script that could be getting injected on a compromised web application. So, if I know that a particular web application server has been compromised and it has possibly got this vulnerability, maybe as part of my reconnaissance effect I would have actually verified the vulnerability. So, I could actually make use of the cookies that is actually used for this particular web application server without the victim ever coming to know about it, right. So, there are actually different plugins that are typically available with a browser like Firefox, and a few sample plugins is what we will be actually looking at in this session. Once I basically try to use any of these plugins and get the cookies, the values that is actually stored in the cookies, it could potentially be a place where I could actually harvest the authentication information with which the tester, as a tester, he would be able to basically go ahead and successfully log in into the particular web application server. Some of the other methods that are actually used to steal the cookies are packet sniffing, network traffic, and hosts that are actually has the possibility of really getting compromised. So, we will actually be seeing these in subsequent discussion that we are having, but essentially as I was just telling, there are a few plugins that are actually available with the Firefox browser which are typically used for dealing with cookies and sort of stealing the contents of the cookies without possibly the awareness of the target device or the target administrator. So, some examples of cookies that are very commonly used are Greasemonkey, Cookie Manager, and Firesheep. So, we will see a few of them now. So, web developer is basically a Firefox extension that basically helps us to add editing and debugging tools for web developers, right. So, because once I sort of get access to a cookie through some means, it will not be sufficient for me possibly to make use of the cookie as it is, but as a penetration tester I would have a requirement to go ahead and modify that, for which a web developer kind of an extension is something which comes in very handy. So, this web developer could be downloaded from the Firefox plugin store, and one feature in the web developer as I was just telling is about for session hijacking with which one will be able to actually go ahead and edit the cookies. So, this could actually be found as a drop down option from the Firefox browser once the web developer plugin is actually installed. In this we basically try to do a view cookie information. So, it will basically be available here, and then you do a view cookie information, you will basically able to see all the stored cookies that are actually available on the browser side, right. So, you can actually edit, you can basically click on the edit cookie button that is actually provided, which will basically throw open a cookie editor, and whatever parts of the cookies that we want to basically change or replace or whatever it is could actually be done as part of this editor. So, once we actually make the changes here and then save it, it basically goes and updates the cookie in the cookies database repository as far as the Firefox browser is concerned, right. If I for example want to change some part of this value, the cookie value, I can go ahead and potentially try to do it here and then save. So, Greasemonkey is another plugin, a Firefox plugin that basically allows users to sort of install scripts which can make changes on the fly when it is actually getting executed, right. So, I could basically have it done as part of the page content loading after the content of the page has actually been loaded. So, Greasemonkey could also be used for customizing a web page appearance. So, in this case if I basically want to make some very subtle modifications for an existing page, I could actually potentially make use of Greasemonkey, because there is an inbuilt editor that is actually available. So, I could basically do debugging, I could basically combine the data from multiple pages and do quite a lot of editing functionality here, right. So, Greasemonkey is actually required for making for using the other tools such as the cookie injector function properly. So, this kind of tools we are going to be seeing subsequently below. So, cookie injector is basically a user script that sort of simplifies and makes it more easier for the cookies to be actually manipulated. So, there are actually a lot of manual steps that one needs to actually do for importing a cookie from a tool like a Wireshark. So, we will be actually seeing subsequently in this particular course about the tool called Wireshark, which is actually used to sniff the packets from the network. Only with being able to run a tool like a Wireshark or a TCP dump kind of a tool, we will actually be able to sniff the contents of the network traffic that is going on and sort of get access to that particular traffic and view the complete packet details. We will actually be seeing a detailed mechanism by which one can make use of a tool like Wireshark subsequently in this course in future sessions, but once you actually understand how to use the tool, if you basically also have to take in the cookies related information from this tool, there are actually a lot of manual steps that one needs to do, as we will see later on, in order to extract the cookie information successfully. Now, the cookie injector plugin basically what it tries to do is it allows the user to copy paste the cookie portion of my entire dump that I get. So, I basically sniff the network, capture the traffic, dump on a screen or onto a file, and from that dump the cookie injector plugin will be very useful for one to basically have the cookies taken from the dump automatically, because it basically parses for certain specific headers of the packet and thereby able to extract the contents of the cookies very easily, and then I could actually save it or paste it in some other location where I would need this content, specifically details about the cookies alone. So, once I install the cookie injector, one needs to press the Alt-C key combination in the keyboard to display the cookie dialog. So, the cookie dialog will be actually something like this, which will be available, and then I could basically paste the copied Wireshark string into the input box and just press click on OK for it to be getting updated into my existing cookies database, right. Once I basically press the OK button, I will basically get a confirmation saying that all cookies have been written. So, whatever contents have been captured and pasted here, I could actually save it, or I could actually go ahead and modify it and then save it also, depending on my specific requirement of what I am doing, what I am trying to do on this particular web application server. So, there is also another plugin called Cookies Manager Plus, which is basically an utility used to view, edit as well as create new cookies. So, it also provides me some more additional detailed information about the cookies, as well as I will be able to edit multiple cookies at the same time. So, with this I could also do a backup and restoration of the cookies, and like other plugins I could download this from the Firefox plugin store. So, once installed, the Cookies Manager Plus plugin will be actually available under the tools option. By selecting the Cookies Manager Plus, I could actually start off this this particular plugin from execution, from basically starting to execute. So, this will basically display all the cookies that has been captured by Firefox. So, this is how it is under the tools option. On this particular Firefox browser version, you have the Cookies Manager Plus. So, once you select this, it basically opens up here, where I am able to have all the cookies that have been actually stored on my browser displayed, and I could basically select any one of them and try to edit it, right. So, it basically opens up the edit cookie option. I basically have the different parts of the cookie related details available here. And I could basically decide which content I want to edit right now, and then finally press the save button after it has got edited. So, including the expiration part of the cookie, I have the facility to go ahead and edit the contents of the cookie with this. So, we will actually see in a few of the subsequent sessions how editing a cookie is something which is very popularly used by the penetration testers. So, cookie catcher is another penetration testing tool that is actually used to audit the web session. So, this can basically include detailed HTTP request capturing and replaying the insecure HTTP GET request. So, when we say insecure HTTP GET request, we are talking of requests that are not going over HTTPS. So, which could potentially be very easily captured, and then I could go ahead and sort of find out more details about what items are getting requested, what are the different user agents from which the request is coming and also getting accepted by the server. So, all those kind of details. So, the cookie catcher can basically provide a live analysis for Wi-Fi and wired networks. So, it could basically makes use of the what is called as PCAP. So, PCAP basically refers to packet capture files. So, I could have a packet capture file from a tool called Wireshark saved, and then using this cookie catcher I could actually load it, in which I will be able to extract the relevant information and then use for possibly login kind of details into the web application server. So, cookie catcher can be downloaded from this particular site called www.cookiecatcher.com. So, this basically is a jar file that is downloaded and you need to basically double click on the file to open up the cookie catcher, and a warning also will pop up asking if you want to enable session detection, right. So, it will basically give you a warning message like this, which will tell you that enabling a session detection will cause the cookie catcher to utilize a larger amount of available system resources, and it also will give you a warning saying that it potentially impersonate as some other person or some other network user, and asking you to give permission for this plugin to do that particular work, because that is basically the whole purpose of using a plugin like this, right. And also it will ask you to check the legality of whether this is something which could be done depending on from which part of the globe we are actually trying to use this particular cookie from. So, once we confirm all these warnings that it is saying and we press the yes button, it basically opens up a window here on which I could basically say start capture, right. So, there are different interfaces, network interfaces that is actually available. It basically would also list down the different possible interfaces that is configured currently, and I basically say start capture on it, after which it starts displaying the details in the subsequent part of the window, right. So, this is one example that has actually come in. So, when I say after start capture, when I press the start capture key, this basically screenshot showing a Linux IX86 machine Mozilla 5.0 user agent that is actually being used, and it basically gives me the MAC address and the IP address also from which this particular request has actually come in. So, when a cookie catcher basically recognizes a login session, so it captures it and gives the ability to load the session. So, I could basically take a capture of that particular login session, which would possibly contain the user and the password options also printed as part of the URL or as part of the form parameters. So, the cookie catcher plugin basically has the intelligence to detect that this request that is actually coming in is a login session request coming in from the browser to the particular web application server to which it is trying to establish a connection, right. So, after it has started capturing a live traffic, it has basically recognized that there has been a login attempt session to the site called the securityblogger.com, and it has also printed the user string which has actually been masked out here, right. So, once I say I want to load this captured section, so it will load the selected session and then display it for me. So, it also has a tab called recognize sessions which will basically contain the details of each and every session that has been recognized individually by this cookie catcher plugin, right. So, once the highlighted one is chosen and the load selected session button is clicked on, it goes ahead and sort of replays the session by using the authentication information that was actually been captured and then sort of replace that same request to the particular web server. Once it is actually does that, it basically also has a domain cookie that is already been, that is also possibly been captured from the victim before. So, once the loading is complete, the default internet browser will open the captured page with whatever rights has actually been used by the stolen cookie. So, if you observe here, there are the different domains that has actually been successfully captured before, and for each of the domains you have the different cookies that it has already captured associated with that particular domain. So, the browser would be now able to basically go ahead and have that particular session loaded with all the captured cookies also available as part of that particular domain being sent as part of the initial establishment session. So, with this kind of a tool we could actually go ahead and sort of replay the captured cookies and sort of get new successful authentication done by the penetration tester into the web application server. Thank you.